You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
And yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And welcome to the Snob OS show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's show. We definitely want to thank you for tuning in and talking some Apple tech news with us today, because it's going to be pretty Apple heavy this week. Before we hop into that, definitely want to take a quick moment to thank each of you for tuning in. And want to send a special shout out to our Patreon supporters who get exclusive content and access to our show early and access to our Discord channel. If you, who are not a Patreon supporter, would like to become a member and join the Snobbish fam, you can head on over to patreon.com/snoboscast. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into this week's show, kicking it off with the lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. So, according to the Wall Street Journal, there is a little bit of a war brewing between Visa and Amex on who is going to get to take over the Apple Card. We've talked about this before on our show, that Goldman Sachs is like, how can we get out of this? This is not bringing us in the revenue that we wanted. And for a quick little, catch up, Goldman Sachs is the issuer of the card, but it's a MasterCard branded card, and MasterCard is a network. So what's up for grabs are both of those things: the issuer, who means who backs it, and the network. So Visa and apparently MasterCard, but I think the biggest two in the ring are Visa and American Express. And they are trying to become the network for the card. So basically the branding on the card, whose network of resources that you get access to. And so Visa has put up an offering. Again, this is according to the Wall Street Journal. And Visa is reportedly offering Apple $100 million upfront, $100 million upfront, as a part of their pitch to say, hey, we want this business. On the other hand, American Express is saying they want to take on both sides of the house. They want to have a role as both the issuer and the network. So they want to say, give me all of this. Whereas now it's split between MasterCard and Goldman Sachs. So I think what this shows is that there are definitely some companies who want in on this. And I think it makes sense for it to be between mostly Visa and American Express, because they already have the business model for their current cards. And I think that was the biggest thing with Goldman Sachs. I don't think they understood fully what they were getting into, whereas Visa and American Express, this is credit card transactions, credit card debt. People, they already have this business going and they know what to expect. So were you surprised, that, there are other companies who were like, yeah, let me get in on this. And especially from the American Express angle, who wants to take both sides as the issuer and the network?
I assumed companies like American Express, highfalutin, air quotes, highfalutin financial companies, financial services, whatever the case may be, did not expect, and again, I'm not saying, MasterCard, is lowbrow, but, right. You think of the Apple Card, you think of its you think of Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you think of consumer, and you know what? I'm not even gonna say that. You think of Apple as a bougie company, right? A lot of people do, right? Same thing with a Goldman Sachs. You think of them as kind of bougie, right? Same
Highbrow.
thing with American
Yeah.
Express. Same thing with
Yeah.
American Express. You think of you have a picture of the type of person that uses American Express, Goldman Sachs, and an Apple Card, right? You have also have a picture of people who use MasterCard, right? So I didn't expect, MasterCard to, not saying I'm not surprised because it's money. And like you mentioned, MasterCard does have history issuing credit cards and dealing with everything that goes along with
That goes with it.
issuing credit cards, right? American Express does as well. So it seems like MasterCard is in the end a decent option for the reasons like I mentioned. They've already got history issuing credit cards. They'll probably won't, and they have so many of them, even though we think of American Express, you think of Goldman Sachs, but like everybody for the most part has a MasterCard. So
Or a Visa.
or a Visa, right? Visa or MasterCard. I even expected Discover maybe to slip in and be like, all right, we need to get back in the game. Nothing like catching a big fish like Apple,
Right.
to get back in the game. I'm not saying they're not in the game, but come on now. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and then everything else, right?
Yeah.
So for MasterCard to jump in, it's like, all right, seems like they want to maybe, get that picture, that avatar of that person who normally may go another route or two before jumping on MasterCard. Now MasterCard not just being the network, because MasterCard, like you mentioned, is already in the game because they're the network that Apple Card uses. Them for to actually be the financial backer would make them a good competitor, at the very least, of the brand that they want to, exude. Maybe they want to be a little bougie. I'm trying to beat around the bush. All that to say,
They
maybe
want
they
to
want to
come
be a little
up.
bit
They want to
bougie.
get flued out.
Yeah, they want to be a little bougie. So Apple getting Apple credit card customers would be a good way to, to have your pinky out a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So we'll see, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the partnership between Apple Card and Goldman Sachs ends this year, 2025. So come 2026, that's a mouthful, we'll see who wins the Apple Card sweepstakes, and see if they're going to issue us new either American Express or Visa branded, or even MasterCard branded cards. So that is definitely something to keep an eye out for. So now for the big deal for this week's lowdown. Apple dropped a batch of medium-sized software updates for basically all of its products this week. So that means iOS 18.4, iPadOS 18.4, watchOS 11.4, macOS 15.4, tvOS even got an update 18.4, and visionOS 2.5. So all these now are currently able to download and update. So we're gonna take as quick as we can with giving you the scoop on these different things, what's out there. So of course we'll start with the golden child of the Apple OS ecosystem, and that is iOS. So iOS 14 is now available for you to download. If you have automatic updates turned on, that should again, you may want to check just to see where you may be in the queue. You may want to force that. What I did was I went ahead and downloaded the update during the day, and at night I scheduled it to install overnight, so I didn't have to worry about less traffic over is going on in the middle of the night. So that's kind of how I did mine. But what is in this update? Again, like the article said, it is a medium-sized update because they've already dropped, this is Wednesday, so they've already dropped the 18.5 beta. So they're really churning these out. But what we did get in 18.4, new Apple Intelligence features that include priority notifications, and some additional language support, an Apple Vision Pro app on iOS. There's this new recipe feature in Apple News Plus. The update also includes some, hopefully, I haven't played with it, but hopefully it says significant improvements to photos organization, because a lot of people complained about that, which I was one of the ones, because it's kind of weird coming from what it previously was. What else? Some new emojis, some CarPlay enhancements, some additional system languages. And most of these changes are compatible with iPhones, but of course, the Apple Intelligence features are specifically for iPhone 16 models and iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. So that's kind of the highlight of what went into the app. Was there anything from your end that you were particularly excited about, or are you used? I was like, you know what? Yep, this is cool. I can get down with this.
Want to see how the priority notifications work compared to previous releases. That was a thing in the news, to where priority notifications was breaking news. The summaries were breaking news that people wanted to take some time to digest, right? If you get a important text message, you want to make sure you read the totality of the message.
And not just the summary.
The summary notifications was like, hey man, your dog's dead. Right. So it'll be interesting to see it. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how customizable the priority notifications are that will enable you to maybe filter out, okay, these messages you get the full thing, these messages I want the summaries, and these messages I just want delivered during the Apple has that feature to where you can have them come immediately, or you can schedule a summary, because that's what I do with a lot of my messages. I created like summary times to where I only get notifications like at 9 a.m, noon, 3, 6, and 8, or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how those priority notifications work with the current features, and how they work with the Apple Intelligence summaries if you have a compatible phone.
Gotcha. Not too. I'm not too overwhelmed by anything that I've seen so far. There are a number of bug fixes that relates to a few different things. I also noticed that there was some changes to Apple Music. There's this ambient music that allows you to instantly play music from the control center. So it's easier for you to kind of manage what's going on in music. But you can, to me, I haven't played with it, but based on what the description is, you can already set, you can add Apple Music to either one of the widgets on the like home screen, and like in the control panel, you can add, the different things that you use the most. So yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how the Apple Music update the feature changes on Apple Music is going to really be different than the way you can already customize your control center, and how you can customize I think it's called the sidecar, where if you're on the home screen, you kind of swipe left, you can set that up to like specific widgets. So whatever that you want to see at a glance.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's called a Today View.
Oh, Today View.
That's what they call it.
So it'll be interesting. Right. Yeah. And they kind of go overboard with these emojis. I don't get them. I mean, it's like a shovel, a splat of purple paint, a barren
I'm pretty
tree.
sure I'm pretty sure users will find creative ways to use each one of those emojis, especially that green splat. And then there was another one I saw. It's like, oh yeah,
The harp
they're
or
gonna figure,
the fingerprints. Oh, the radish. It looks like it's a radish.
probably the radish, maybe even the fingerprint. I'm pretty sure people will find creative ways to use all those. So I'm not worried.
Oh yeah, they don't even call it a root vegetable, but it looks like a radish. So that's we're gonna go with it. I know that you have CarPlay. Have you noticed? Have you been able to play with any of the updates for CarPlay?
I have not. I used CarPlay today, but it's almost like you just set it and forget it. I really don't look at it. I plug my phone in, and music comes on. I
Get
can
your
select
music
my
going.
playlists. I
Yeah.
can use my Apple Maps, and that's
Mhm.
about the gist of CarPlay for me.
All right. Up next is um, iPad OS 18.4. So the interesting thing about this iPad OS update is most of the articles that I have for this week, they kind of give us the overview, were from 9 to 5 Mac. 9 to 5 Mac did not have an article specifically dedicated to iPad OS. They kind of
Okay.
lumped it in with iOS, but they only talked about iOS stuff. So I had to like go to, I think it was Apple Insider, to actually get some information on what's going on with iPad OS. I know iOS and iPad OS are very similar in most respects, but I think there are some things that were specifically that spoke to iPadOS other than iOS. So the things we just talked about in iOS, think of those things coming down to iPadOS. But there was a redesign for the Mail app. So basically, it does similar. I think what it looks like is similar to what we have on iOS, which is basically the inbox categorization. So you can have the primary, transactions, updates, and promotions. So it's one of those things where it gives you a little bit more cleanup if you're looking at emails on your iPad. It also got some updates in the Apple News Plus, has how we talked about the recipes in iOS. That seems to be in iPadOS as well. And there are some other improvements in shortcuts, HomeKit upgrades that includes the robot vacuum and Matter-enabled smoke detectors. And there are some minor updates in Control Center, Safari, and in the App Store. I have yet to, I won't say I have yet to upgrade because I don't know if it did it already, but I haven't checked to see if my iPad has updated to 18.4. But those are just a few things that were thrown in. I know a lot of people use their iPads for reading, for drawing, for sketching. So there are some changes and improvements to the image playground that makes it a little bit easier for the different images that are and pictures that are generated to show up. So I think it gives it a cleaner look on the iPad. And of course, you have more screen real estate on your iPad than you do on your iPhone when it comes to this new the new style changes in Sketch. I believe those changes are in iOS 18 as well, but to me, you probably get a better view of it because just of the size of the screen for the iPad. So, anything stand out for you
No,
on
because
an iPad?
most of this stuff has already been. None of this stuff is unique to the iPad. All of this
Mm-hmm.
stuff has been announced or released in previous versions of iOS, which is probably
Mm-hmm.
why it was hard for you to find any outlet that identified iPad specific iOS 18.3 features, iOS 18.4, excuse me, iOS 18.4 features. The only thing that is the only thing that is new to the iPad is the redesigned Mail app. In 18, iOS 18 or dot versions of iOS 18, when the Mail app where you could do those categories, promotions,
Mm-hmm.
notifications, primary, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
iPhone Ben had those. The
Yeah.
iPad just got them with iOS
Yeah.
18.4. So that's probably the only new thing that iPad users will probably take the most time playing with, because all of these other features as have already been, they've probably already been, end users have probably already been using them on their iPhone. So
And they're familiar with it, so it's not going to be anything that is
yeah,
new to them. It'll just be
and
a
I don't
new medium.
and I don't use my iPad for productivity. So I'm really not checking email like that on my
Yeah.
iPad.
Yeah. The only email I think I have on my iPad is my iCloud email, but none of my other email addresses are even on there because I'm not trying to, like you said, I'm not trying to do work on that. This is fun time. It's social time. All right. So Sequoia, macOS Sequoia 15.4 got an update similar to iOS and iPadOS. It got the Mail app redesign, which probably is going to make the biggest difference for people who use the Mail app on their Macs. I use the Mail app on my Mac, so I'm interested. I definitely haven't updated my Mac because I did not want to do that before we came on the show, because when you try and do too much, it usually doesn't work. So I was like, I'll wait until we're done with the show, and then I will update my Mac. What else? So it's some new Apple Intelligence features that are now showing up on Sequoia 15.4. So the image playground is now on your Mac. So it seems to be across all of the products now that has a capability. So the same thing with the sketch image, the sketch style imaging is on there. You can also now create a memory movie from the Photos app. That's now going to be on your MacBook. Got some new languages. On the Apple podcast side, we are a podcast. So if you listen to your podcast through your Mac, I'm sure some people do. I usually don't, but hey, whatever floats your boat. You can get some new widgets if you're using the podcast app. Let's see what it says. Follow shows lets you easily access recent episodes from your shows you follow, while the customizable library widget can be configured to show different app sections such as downloaded or saved. So it's going to make it looks like a little bit more functional to navigate around Apple Podcasts on your Mac. Of course, gets the new emojis. We've talked about those already. Quick Start is now on the Mac. So if you're setting up a new device, Apple has offered this quick start feature, basically where it has like the blue kind of like, I don't know, what do you call it? Almost like sky kind of like dancing little dots that you just kind of line up. You can now do that on your Mac when you're setting up a new device. And it allows you to scan the code on your phone or your iPad and transfers those settings to any new hardware. So that's kind of handy. An easy way to set up any new devices that you have. And I think that's it on the macOS Sequoia side of things.
All right. Definitely looking forward to only two features,
Okay.
which is again in the Mail app, the ability to look at your threaded conversation messages in digest view. So it kind of groups them all together, similar to how I don't know how Gmail does it, but I'm assuming they have some sort of conversation, or I think Outlook calls it threaded messages. Apple's version of threaded messages is digest view. So looking forward to that, because the Mail app does not do a good job at all at grouping conversations. It is weird to look at and dig through conversations in the Mail app on your Mac. So hopefully the Digest view fixes that, and contact photos inside the Mail app. When I first read this, I thought contact photos was just a feature that Apple has included in the Contacts app on the Mac.
Mm-hmm.
I was wrong, but
Okay.
the Contacts app is terrible on the Mac. And I was really hoping when they said the Contacts view, I really thought that has something to do with the Contacts app. But no, the Contacts app on the Mac is still trash as always. So
It's
I'm
for
hoping,
the messages.
I guess, but trying to look up a user, it's just not the interface. It's usable, but the interface really hasn't changed, and I'm looking.
It's not user friendly.
Yeah. It just doesn't look nice. It just looks regular. They keep changing the icon to match whatever style that Apple is working with that season. But outside of that, the Contacts app really hasn't really changed at all. So I was hoping to update to that, but maybe when WWDC comes out.
Maybe that's going to be what is considered in this reinvention, this new overhaul of iOS 19. So maybe you'll get the update to the Contacts app. And speaking of WWDC, on a quick tangent, today is Wednesday. We should know tomorrow the Apple invites should start rolling out. So fingers crossed that your girl gets finally the invitation that says, yes, you can come and sit at Apple Park and listen to us talk about the things that we're talking about. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right. Up next in the iOS updates is watchOS 11.4. So the interesting thing with this particular update, it was dropped and then they pulled it back and then they relaunched it again on yesterday. So all this stuff dropped on Monday, right? And so it was there, then became unavailable. Then the next day it was back. Not 100% sure what happened. I don't think anybody really said. It's just kind of one of those things of, oh, well, it's there now, so use it. But there are a couple of things that we are seeing in watchOS. Matter compatible robot vacuum cleaner can be added to the home app. Are people really using robot cleaners that much where it needs kind of like all this fanfare? Maybe, I guess.
Well, I have a robot and I have a separate app that is not connected. It's not HomeKit compatible at all.
Okay.
But it comes in handy when for instance, I'll use for my family, right? When I go into the kitchen, I tend to clean up after myself. I have kids who don't share my same style as it comes to leaving the kitchen, right? So when I leave the kitchen, it's pretty clean. But I know after me, my kids, some stuff is going to happen, right? So it would be nice outside of or in addition to my normally scheduled cleaning that the robot, I get, set it up at 2 a.m. clean the floor, right? It'd be nice when I know my kids are done in the kitchen and nobody else is going in there. It'd be nice to say, hey, clean the kitchen.
Home girl.
Yeah. Right. So it's just a convenience thing. It would be nice to be able to have that. And I think it's more of a, well, why doesn't HomeKit enable robot vacuums to be able to just say, hey, homegirl, clean the living room? It's almost like a duh, and now that they've got it, it's like, duh.
Right. Right. Yeah, because I was wondering because it seems to be a highlight everywhere. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm missing out. Maybe I need to get me a home robot. But the only thing is the robot doesn't go upstairs or downstairs. So you basically have to have a robot on every floor of your house for it to do its thing.
Well, if you wanted to clean the whole entire house. Luckily, our main floor is all hardwood and there's
Mm-hmm.
a couple of area rugs.
Mm-hmm.
So our robot is just for the main floor. We've got upstairs, the bedroom, the bedrooms areas is carpet, and then we have a basement which is mostly carpet.
Mm-hmm.
But we really don't. We vacuum upstairs, so
Mm-hmm.
the handheld vacuum stays upstairs, and then we use the robot vacuum throughout the week. And then when you really want to clean, because they really ain't cleaning like a broom and a
Like,
dustpan, right?
yeah.
Right. So when you really want to clean up, old school
You
it.
break out
But
the
like
real stuff. Yeah.
right. But during the week, it'd be nice to say, hey, clean the family room, and it do its
Yeah.
thing and then going back in this versus me having to open up another app that's not HomeKit compatible and
Mm-hmm.
do the thing. I can just say, hey, clean the, living room. So
Nice. What else? I'll come back to this one. The new emojis, they get those. That's on the emoji keyboard now. Apparently there was an issue with the watch face selection where it would become responsive if you were changing in between faces. Apparently that's fixed now. But the other thing that seems to be getting some notice is the new sleep wake up alarm that kind of, if you have your phone silenced. I think we talked about this either last week or a couple
last
weeks
week.
ago. That's what this feature does. It basically just it keeps your Apple Watch in silent mode, but you'll still get an audible sound when that alarm goes off. So if you sleep with your watch and that's what you're using as your alarm clock, even if you silence your phone while you're sleeping, you still will get the actual alarm to say, hey girl,
The
it's time
audible
to get up.
version
Yeah.
versus the
Yeah.
taptic. If you're
Tapping.
wearing a
Yeah.
watch to sleep, you get the taptic and it kind of literally taps you on the wrist. Well, there's some people who sleep a little bit harder than that. So the
And the
ability
tap
to
don't do
break
nothing.
through, yeah. So the ability for the alarms to break through the silent mode, because again, like I mentioned last week, I've set my phone to where it goes into silent mode at like 11:30 and doesn't break the silent mode until like 7 a.m. But I may need to get a notification, like an alarm, to break through that silent mode to where I need to hear it. Right. So this is
Yeah.
what that feature is for.
Yep. All right. That's all for the watchOS update. Next, we have tvOS 18.4. So this update for tvOS brings several interface refinements to the Apple TV app. It focuses primarily on improving the feature tile carousel with new buttons for adding to the watch list and accessing information pages. It also gives a more visible release schedule for different shows. The update also includes refreshed fonts and special icon designs for content selections like movie spotlight, sports, and Friday Night Baseball. And these changes are considered, I guess, minor, but it shows that Apple is definitely trying to make sure that the Apple TV app itself is still getting updated because a lot of people use Apple TV. So you just can't leave it in the wind and update everything else except for that.
Yeah, they do a good job. Most of these features seem like they are specifically Apple TV Plus related. Of course, you can get Netflix, you can get Disney, you can get all the different streaming apps
Right.
on the Apple TV box. But like the prominent show release schedules, movie spotlight, sports, and Friday Night Baseball are all Apple TV Plus features. So I don't think those are going to be shared amongst all of the platforms, those specific things. Now, again, you'll have better buttons, you'll be have quicker ways to add stuff to a watch list, better in navigation, but those specific features looks like to me are only for Apple TV Plus users, which again, that prominent show release schedule will come in handy because you kind of figure out on your own when shows are released, or
Mm-hmm.
like when you are trying to watch a show, it'll say, you
You're like,
know,
oh, new episode.
or you can't play it yet because, like, for instance, there's this week with John Oliver, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm always at 9 o'clock trying to play it, and it's like, hey man, you got to wait another hour, you know.
It's not time yet.
So being able to have that more prominent schedule, like, will save me some time from trying to click on stuff to watch it when it ain't available quite yet.
When it's not time. It's like it's not time yet. Cool. Last up on the OS update rundown, we have visionOS 2.4. All right. So this latest version for the Apple Vision Pro, it is adding Apple Intelligence features, including the image playground. Vision Pro is finally getting the writing tools. They're also getting the priority notification. Also, this update introduces a new spatial gallery app that features curated spatial photos, videos, and panoramas from photographers, brands, and Apple originals. And it also has content that goes across art, culture, entertainment, and more. Additionally, this update enhances the guest user experience by allowing sessions initiated from nearby iPhones or iPads, giving hosts control over the apps guests can access. So I'm assuming if I have a Vision Pro and you have a Vision Pro, I can invite you to see what's going on in my Vision Pro. You can't control it, or I can give you access of what to control, but we're basically sharing the same view from our individual Vision Pros, but it's the same thing.
Are you talking about with the guest user? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think the
With the
guest
guest
user
user.
is, I think guest user is literally, I own
Someone else using
my,
yours?
right. I take mine off and give it to somebody. They can
Gotcha.
go in and have some specific features without messing up my profile. Basically, is what
Gotcha.
that is.
Okay. Because the way it was reading it was like, hey, let's share our screen. But no, this is if you want to share your device.
Right.
Kind of like a different login. If you have like
Right.
back in the day, we had family computers and everybody had their own login
Yeah.
because
And,
everybody
you
wanted to
know,
have their different background or different access to
right.
things.
So more currently, right? Think of Netflix. Well, again, you live by yourself. You know, me in a family of 5. I don't want nobody messing up my Netflix algorithm.
Don't mess
So
up my algorithm, man.
right. So I've got a profile that I go under when I want to watch my Netflix versus my wife's versus my kids, yada yada yada. Think of this the same way. You put on my Vision Pro, log into the guest account. Don't log in and mess up my stuff.
Right. Well, I know it's the same because I share an Peacock account with my brother, and he
Okay.
has his login, and I have my login, and we share. I think I gave him access to a couple of the apps that I have, and he has his, and I have mine. So okay, all right. I was making this way more complicated than I think it was because when I think of Vision Pro, I'm thinking if we are doing this thing and you want to see what I'm seeing, and I invite you in because it's a whole virtual world, right? But maybe my expectations are a little bit too high for that. So,
Well,
IDK.
I mean, so with VR in general, I think Meta has this as well, to where you can sit next to me while I'm on my VR headset on your iPhone or your iPad and kind of see what I'm seeing. It's not going to be the same experience, of course,
Right.
but you can see what I'm seeing. I think what you're reading is a mix of both of that. It says allowing session initiation from nearby iPhones or iPad and giving hosts control over which apps guests can access. So on one hand, it's like, all right, if they are watching something on their own device, they can't see, I can control what they can and can't see. And then the same thing, if I give you my Vision Pro, I can control what apps you can access, things of that nature. So it's almost like a twofer.
It's a twofer, yeah. Because I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound the same. But yeah. Okay, so for the people that do have Vision Pro, there you go. All right, I think that's going to wrap up the lowdown because we did cover a lot fairly quickly. We're not going to do second string this week because we did talk a little bit long through the Apple OS updates. So let's go ahead and head into For the Culture, where we talk about what's going on around us in our world. So I'm not sure if you, Terrance, or you, our listeners, are aware, but yesterday, Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey had a little bit of I call this this particular article a yapper for good. He is technically, what he did was not a filibuster, but everyone's calling it a filibuster. So essentially, he gave a speech for 25 hours straight. No bathroom breaks, no sitting down, and he talked straight through for over 25 hours. He started this on 7 p.m. on Monday night. He didn't eat anything during this time. Again, like I said, he didn't sit, he didn't go to the bathroom. He had some glasses of water up by him. He had like some tissues. And he had 5 3-ring binders with what he was going to speak on. So he basically took this time to basically go through and basically call out all of the stuff that has been going on in this current administration. He also included some letters that he received from his constituents that they wrote into him about. He included some of that as well. And he basically just took this as a moment to get into some good trouble, in the words of the legendary Atlanta's own John Lewis. So one of the other key things about this speech is that his staff had it going live on a live YouTube stream. It was also up on TikTok. I think at one point it was over 100 million people that were watching this. And in real time, his staff was, pulling clips and posting those on TikTok as well to get engagement as well. So, he was really engaging the users in this because, again, this was over 25 hours of nonstop talking. I think the other thing to note is that he became his speech, his quote unquote filibuster, became the longest in U.S. history. And interestingly enough, the person that he surpassed was known segregationist and racist Strom Thurmond, who gave this type of speech for 24 hours and 18 minutes. But his speech was against the 1957 Civil Rights Act that we currently have, that initially protected the civil liberties of minorities. So it's one of those things where I think it's important to highlight. A lot of people will say, oh, it's just kind of like for show, or it's, just propaganda is not the word. There's a word I want to use that is evading me. No, not showboating. It'll come to me. But, it was one of those things where, people just thought this is just another stunt, another trick to kind of, get, clicks and likes. But for me, in this age of where we are with the type of administration that we have, we can't necessarily go by the traditional playbook, because they aren't going by the playbook. And these types of things, as vain as they may seem, it gets eyes, it gets visibility, and it brings focus to some of the things that are going on with this country and some of the things that this administration is doing. So I don't know about you, but standing up, I'm a talker. I can talk, but to talk for over 25 hours straight while standing with no food, no bathroom breaks, and only water, That is quite a feat. So, you know, kudos to him for the effort.
Um, it is. I don't like the filibuster. I'm just going to cut to the chase. I don't like. I think it's stupid. I think the ability for just people to just talk and run the clock out. It's like that ain't what we elected you for, right? Having said that, if you use all the tools in the toolbox, until somebody stops you, and then you do something else. So if the filibuster is going to be a thing, which I despise it, that and electoral college are the two things I probably hate about American politics more than anything, right? Or American democracy, not politics, American democracy. Having said that, you use every tool in the toolbox. And if for nothing to break Strom Thurmond's record, I'll give you kudos for that, right? Because that dude was a monster. But outside of that, it's par for the course, because it's let me not say par for the course. It's not unusual. It's not unique. It's not refreshing. I think most people are looking for something refreshing from the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party, for whatever reason, is stuck on morals and ethics and values. Morals and ethics and values ain't going to get you crap.
And it's been out the window a long time ago.
So let's come up with something refreshing. They tried the paddles in the Senate on the State of the Union, which kind of flopped. They tried to go on these podcast and TikTok tours to show the quote unquote show the American people that they are just as down to earth, and they can talk about regular stuff and go on these regular podcasts and interact with regular people. That's nice, but that's what everybody does because social media, right? It's like what the Republicans are doing stuff that, for lack of a better term, is refreshing because it's unique. We ain't never done it before. We ain't never seen it before. So I think everybody's looking to the Democrats, say, all right, what's going to be y'all thing?
What you got?
And right. And I don't know if a filibuster's it, but at the very least, you're doing something. And again, the filibuster is a tool in the toolbox. So why not? Why?
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where it's so much misinformation going on that I think this is definitely going to give them some good material, especially when it comes to midterms, to be able to combat some of the lies and the misinformation that are coming out. I'm sure when they wrote this, this thing out, they already kind of knew what we need to capture in sound bites. So if that idiot says something, they can, easily play this part of the speech to rebut that. So I don't know if that's what their intent was, but it sounds like to me, if you're going to have somebody go up there and speak for 24, 25 hours straight, be strategic about it so that when the time comes, when misinformation comes out, you've covered your bases. So when you know that a lie comes out and they're saying something intentionally incorrect, or just because they're not smart, they say something incorrect, you have a senior senator who's addressed this already, and you can easily say, okay, here's this piece of the speech that combats or negates the lies that you're telling. So, that's what we have. And the other thing I'll say before we wrap this up is Cory Booker is one of the younger senators that we have in office. And it was really unfortunate that during, I think maybe the 24th hour, right before he was approaching breaking Strom Thurmond's record, the current minority leader, Chuck Schumer, tried to break it and yield. He tried to break in to tell him to yield the floor. And then Cory Booker had to say, I have the floor. I do not have to yield to you, and I'm going to keep going. So with things like that is, why would you, as the Democratic leader of the Senate, go on the floor 10, 15, 20 minutes before he's about to break this record to try to break his speech and get him to yield to you when you already know what the game is. Like, why are you trying to even interject into this? As the leader, maybe go on TV, because he's been on TV a lot talking about his own thing because people are crapping on him for, basically breaking down and siding with the administration, this current administration, on, I think, the CR to keep the government up and running. And I think he was just trying to inject himself into this moment from Cory Booker. And I was just like, bro, seriously, we finally got something decent kind of going, and here you go trying to mess it up. Bro.
Well, that's been without getting too deep into it, that's been the problem for the Democratic Party for the past 10 years since Obama. Yeah. It's like, all right, man, unity. Unity. We got the progressives over here. You got, Bernie Sanders and AOC and what's the lady's name?
The Squad.
No, with the glasses, older lady. I can see her
Maxine
face.
Waters.
No,
Maxine Waters.
No, white lady.
With the glasses.
What is her name?
Elizabeth Warren.
Yes, Elizabeth Warren. You got them over here. We need to redo this whole thing, and then you've got Nancy Pelosi, and you've got Chuck Schumer, kind of like, hey guys, I get status quo vibes from them.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep my job and keep my money from them.
Right. And it's just like, come on, man, we got to throw everything out and try something and make something new. The Democrats have known about this Project 2025 forever.
Yeah.
And never even thought to have a alternative plan to this. Now Project 2025 is in full effect, and now the Democrats are scrambling. It's like, but we've known about this for 5 years now, and it's just like,
I'm so sick.
And then again, like I said, Chuck, the centrists of the party are like, we just need to get the Republicans to see that this is. They don't see, man.
They don't see it, and they don't want to, and they're not going to. They're not coming over here. Right.
So try something new. Again, that's what kind of leads me to this whole filibuster thing. It's like, I mean, it's an attempt, but it's just like, that's been around forever. And I guess outside of just getting on people's nerves, it's like, all right, man, we can try something else. It's something else. I applaud him for doing it. I couldn't have did it, so I'm not going to knock Cory Booker. Somebody's got to do something. Somebody's got to try something, because all this sitting on our hands is not working.
And I think that's the problem. It sounds like the leadership has their idea, and their idea of what they want to do is stupid. I'm going to be honest. And it sounds like, to me, Cory Booker is trying to work in the stupidity confines that they've put him in to try and maybe come up with something within the confines of what they're saying the party and the caucus is trying to do. I don't know. I ain't over there with them people, but all I know is all of this is just a hot mess, and I'm over it. Because as soon as he got finished, the donation texts and emails, I was like, I'm not giving y'all nothing. I gave you what I had this last election, and you let me down. So I'm gonna let y'all figure it out for now, because right now I ain't got it. So with that being said, we're gonna head over to the hookup for our tech tip of the week.
It's pretty simple. Similar to how you had to shut down your iPhone and your iPad and your Apple Watch. Shut down those Macs. I think a lot of people just close the lid or lock the screen or put their Mac to sleep. Those are not shutting down the Mac. If you shut down your Mac at least once every 7 days, you'll be able to extend the life of your Mac. You won't have to deal with these issues that you're having, because a lot of times it just needs a break. Give your Mac a break. Give your processor a break. Give your graphics processor a break, give the modem, give everything a break, and just shut it down and restart. You know, people when it comes to things like their TV, when it comes to things like your let's use your TV for example. Your TV's acting up. The first thing people do is turn it off.
Turn it off.
You know, with computers, they don't do that. They close applications. They disconnect and re-enable the Wi-Fi. They do all these things instead of like, I've got a t-shirt. I'm from IT. I've worked in support for a long time, and I've got a t-shirt that says, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? There's been that seems to be the, not even the get out of jail free card. It's just like, if you talk to any tech support person, that's going to be the first thing they ask, because it's the easiest thing to do to solve a lot of your problems. But it still amazes me how many people will let their computer run for weeks on end, and just because they think they got it plugged up and the battery's running and the battery's charging, that's enough. It's like, man, let's give your Mac a break. So that's my hookup for the week. You know, make sure you shut down that Mac at least once a week and let it breathe.
So I don't know if this is the proper way to do it, but sometimes I just let my battery die on my phone, on my iPad, and on my computer. I was like, you know what? We're just going to let the battery just go ahead and die.
Yep,
and then I'll plug it back up.
And you plug it up, and it'll give it time to charge, and it'll give it even more time, because most people just restart their computer, and it's just like, yeah, that kicks some stuff out, but like shut it down and leave it alone for a little bit, you know. So letting the battery die would be a way to do that. Yeah.
All right, cool. That is going to wrap up our show for this week. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure, you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere. You can also find our show at tvOS Cast on the social media outlets as well. You can also head on over to our website, tvOScast.com, to get details on how to connect, to comment, to share, and to support our show. And with that, we will see you next week.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.